Welcome to Media for Change, a television show produced by the students from the Department of Communications and Media at the University of Northern Iowa. We believe the media can be a powerful force for bringing around positive change and innovation in our world. Hi, I'm Ethan Vogt.
And I'm Cade Williams. Today's episode is called What's in Your Water? We will be looking into agricultural runoff and soil conservation in Iowa and the dangers that it can pose to our environment.
According to the Iowa Environmental Council, Iowa is facing a clean water crisis, with the main culprit being pollution from non-point sources like agricultural runoff. This runoff is mostly nutrient-based. Around 92% of the nitrogen and 80% of the phosphorus pollutions have come from non-point sources like agricultural runoff.
These nutrients travel down the Mississippi River into the Gulf of Mexico and create what's known as the dead zone. The nitrogen and phosphorus trigger algae blooms that choke off oxygen in the water, which makes it difficult for marine life to survive.
The National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration estimates the dead zone costs the U.S. seafood and tourist industries $82 million a year.
To understand the impact of this issue in the Cedar Valley, we'll be exploring local initiatives in mitigating agricultural runoff and soil conservation. But first, this message.
Welcome back to our show, Media for Change. We've been talking about the destructive impact agricultural runoff has on our water and marine life here in Iowa and in the Gulf of Mexico. Those toxic algae blooms don't just affect the Gulf, it also affects our local lakes and reservoirs like Saylorville and Lake Darling in Iowa. According to Capital Dispatch, in 2024, many rivers in the state have been seeing a major uptick in nitrate concentration. Some of those rivers listed in the article were the Turkey, Boone, Iowa, and our very own Cedar River. The next segment explores one local program that aims to clean up our waterways. Take a look.
So the Dry Run Creek watershed, it's about a 15,000 acre watershed. It runs from south side about Ranchero Road to the north end about 12th Street, from about Union Road on the west side, and then Cedar Heights on the east side. And so within that area, it's a diverse landscape. We have rural agricultural fields, largely row crop. We have some livestock production in there as well. But then you get into the urban areas where we have industrial, residential, commercial, and educational lands. So there's 4 main branches of this creek, about 30 miles of stream in total. I would say the main environmental challenge that Dry Run Creek is facing is largely our stormwater pollution runoff. When it rains, you know, it's coming off the hard surfaces, it's coming off our fields, and on its way to get to the creeks, whether that's running overland, whether that's going through drain tile, whether that's going through the storm drain system in our urban areas, it's picking up pollution on the way. And that can be something like oils from our cars, that can be nitrates and phosphorus from the cornfields, that can be pesticides on our lawns. And so there's a lot of different sources of potential pollution that gets picked up and transported directly to the creek. Sediment and soil is a big portion of that as well. So the Dry Run Creek has faced quite a bit of changes. We are a growing urban community here in Cedar Falls. And so what we've monitored over the last 20 years, we've seen about a 1% to 2% increase in urbanization each year. So those are lands that, you know, hundreds of years ago were largely prairie that then got converted to corn and soybean fields. And now those are getting bought up and developed. So we're getting hard surfaces. So really that dynamic change that's happened in the last few hundred years is what's the source of our water quality issues here. Soil has a really dynamic property. You know, here in the Iowa, we are graced with some of the best agricultural lands in the world. With that high organic matter, that has the potential to leach out into our rivers and streams. So when we have soil erosion, that sediment gets detached and ends up in our creeks, and that can fill in vital habitat for aquatic creatures. We have a wonderful arrangement or assortment of tools that we can utilize to try and get conservation on the land. So we try and provide quite a few resources for folks. So whether you're interested in ways you can get involved, you can always check out our local Soil and Water Conservation District website. So that's blackhawkswcd.org. We also have active Facebook pages, so you can check out Dry Run Creek Watershed Improvement Project on Facebook. We also have a YouTube channel, and so we try and provide those resources, so whether someone's interested in how they can get a stormwater assessment of their home, or they want to learn more about rain gardens, or they're interested in cost share programs on their agricultural land, you can check out any one of those resources and get dedicated information there.
Welcome back to Media for Change. It was very interesting to learn how urban development is impacting Dry Run Creek and what is being done to improve the water. One of the main ways to reduce agricultural runoff is soil conservation. The process of soil conservation is using a combination of practices to protect vital topsoil from washing away and promoting soil health. For more on local efforts in soil conservation, let's take a look.
In Black Hawk County, agricultural runoff is an ongoing concern, impacting crops and nearby waterways. Pesticides and nutrients in the soil pollute streams and raise nitrogen levels, impacting the wildlife and the environment. Today we're going to talk with local soil conservationist Nick Finnegan from the Black Hawk Soil and Water Conservation District about what Cedar Falls and the state of Iowa is doing about this problem.
Best soil is on the top, and that seems to be what we're losing a lot of, and it'll end up in streams, ditches, and with that good dirt, we're having a lot of nutrients with that. So we're having a lot of problems with like Cedar Rapids having nitrogen problems in their water.
When soil runoff happens to farmland, a lot of good, rich topsoil gets washed away.
150 years, the topsoil's gone down from like 18 inches down to like 6.
Soil conservation practices can lead to increased crop yields, reduced input costs, and improved long-term agricultural productivity, which will continue to benefit farmers and consumers.
That we're kind of been talking about the last couple of years is going and seeing like your yield monitor and seeing where them low yielding places are at and maybe turning that into CRP.
Local experts like those at Cedar Falls Soil and Water Conservation District are working to implement sustainable practices that can prevent erosion and restore soil health. These practices include crop rotation, reduced tillage, and planting cover crops like rye, clover, and oats, which protect the soil year-round.
So there's a lot of things that cover crops can do, and there's a lot of different families. So one of the main ones that we see here in Iowa is rye, and so that's a grass and it has a fibrous root system, so it'll hold that soil together, and then it's also secreting fluids from the I can't remember, sugars and stuff, so that'll help feed the microbes, and so the microbes are going to make your soil healthier. You're going to increase your filtration of water with the root system.
One tool that recently came into play was a nitrogen fertilizer application tool, also known as the NFAC tool. It made its debut on February 4th, 2025. The NFAC tool also uses real-time data and advanced modeling, and can predict where soil loss might occur in Iowa. Although we are taking steps forward to prevent soil erosion, there are still some difficulties.
So, I mean, a lot of people are saying, well, no-till's tough or growing cover crops tough. I mean, yeah, it's just a different management style. So, I mean, it's not necessarily that it's tough. It's just that you have to kind of change how you've done things. So,
Nick also told us how soil may be polluting our waterways and what him and his partners are doing to try and keep our waterways clean.
and reduce soil runoff and nutrients. So with CRP, we have things like field borders, buffer strips, so that'll catch a lot of the runoff before it gets to the streams, and that'll help keep a lot of that pollutants out.
Although farmers may be hesitant about changing their ways, Nick and his team continue to work hard to try and preserve Cedar Falls' precious soil.
Welcome back to Media for Change. We are talking about the issue of agricultural runoff, soil conservation, and its impact on the environment. Joining us in the studio is Schaefer Ridgway from the National Resources Conservation Service. How are you doing today?
Great.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and the National Resources Conservation Service.
Yeah, so I'm Schaefer Ridgway. I'm the district conservationist with the Natural Resources Conservation Service of Black Hawk County. Natural Resources Conservation Service, where we started out as the Soil Conservation Service in the 1930s after the Great Dust Bowl. And so we started out just trying to help with erosion issues. In the 80s, our role has kind of evolved and name changed to the Natural Resources Conservation Service. So where we work with farmers and private landowners trying to address conservation issues like soil erosion, water quality, wildlife habitat, nutrient management, air quality, things like that.
And then how long have you worked there?
I've been there, oh man, I believe this is my 25th year.
Wow.
Yeah, been in Black Hawk County for about 21 years.
I see.
Yep.
So our videos explored agricultural runoff and soil conservation. Why is soil and water conservation important in Iowa?
Well, I think it's simple. We all like clean water. I mean, I think if you ask anybody, they want clean water. Everybody don't understand how you get to that point, where the water that comes out of your faucet is clean and safe. But it's important, and the other part, the reason why is important is because we have an agriculture economy in this state. And if we don't take care of our water and our soil here in this state, then it won't be good for our state.
Mm-hmm. So what are some of the biggest threats to water quality in Iowa?
Oh, the biggest threat for water quality in Iowa is probably the fact that we all want to produce more, right? And so one of those ways that we want to produce more is that we have to provide more nutrients because we want to feed more people. We want to have a better life for our families. And so our farmers do. And so we put on sometimes excess nutrients. And it's not always excess. Sometimes it's because we have a lot of rich soils already in our state. And so sometimes you might have more there than you know. And so when you put on what you think you need, you quite didn't need that. So soil testing and things like that is important to make sure you don't put on excess. But yeah, I would say the chase for greater yields is probably the biggest threat.
I see. So what are some of the causes of agricultural runoff?
Some of the causes for agricultural runoff, excessive tillage could be one of those things that cause you to have excess runoff. Compaction issues on your farm where you don't infiltrate the rain that falls and that water starts to run off of your soil. We would like to see it come down to maybe even like we have these soil health principles. If you don't keep the ground covered to break that rainfall and protect it, if you don't have some kind of a living root in that soil all the time, that can cause a lot more excessive runoff. Mm-hmm. And then, like I said, compaction and tillage is probably the other two biggest things that would cause you to have excessive runoff.
So what is excessive tillage? If you could tell a little bit more about that.
Using that word is kind of scary because I don't think there's a farmer out there that would say they have excessive tillage, right? But what do I need to do to get my crop in the ground? How much tillage is required to get my crop in the ground? And every situation is not a no-till situation. I know we would, as conservationists, we would love for every situation to be a no-till situation, but it's not. And there might be some reasons why some tillage is needed. And so I don't want it to sound like every farmer that's doing tillage is excessive. I think, though, when we go beyond what we need to do to get the crop in the ground, and maybe some weed control and things of that nature, then we can look at it as excessive.
I see. So what are the environmental issues that have been arising from this issue?
From excessive tillage? Or?
No, from just agricultural runoff in general.
what are some of the environmental
yeah.
issues that's arising? Yeah, I would say probably, like I said, we was born in the 30s because of erosion, right? Wind erosion mainly, but water erosion is another big problem, and it still is to this day. I mean, we still have erosion, and we always talk about, well, how much is excessive erosion? How much is excessive? We have something called a soil tolerable level, and in most cases around here is about 5 tons per acre per year. But is 5 tons too much? Well, when I talk to some people, they say, Schaefer, 3 tons is too much. It's not sustainable over the long term if we continue to have high rates of erosion, right? And that's true, because we've lost a lot of topsoil in this state, a lot of topsoil in this state. Probably 10 to 12 inches of our topsoil is gone. And we won't get it back in our lifetime, right? And if we don't change some things, we'll never get it back. That's probably, soil erosion is still big. Water quality is huge. We have a lot of impaired water bodies in our state, and mainly for nitrogen and phosphorus levels in the streams and lakes. And so I would probably put those 2 things at the top of my list. Which one is first? Which one is second? I don't know. I mean, water quality probably get talked about the most. But a lot of times the reason our water quality is bad is because we have, excessive soil erosion. You look at a lot of our streams and they look a little milky, especially, late spring of the year. And a lot of that's because of some runoff if we get a big rain. I mean, and some of these rains that we're getting now is a huge threat to agriculture. I mean, when you get 3 inches of rain in 30 minutes, that's tough to handle by anybody. So, yeah.
I see. So it looks like it's time to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll start getting into the issue of soil conservation. Welcome back to Media for Change. I'm your host, Cade. We're here with Schaefer Ridgway to talk about the efforts of the Natural Resources Conservation Service and their work to protect soil and water in the U.S. So we just discussed the impact of agricultural runoff and soil erosion and how it affects streams and rivers, but also affects soil health. Can you tell us about why that is so important?
Well, soil health is just like me and your health, right? There's some indicators, there's some things that if you keep the soil healthy, we can continue to produce in the abundance of crops that we do in this state. And there's some things that you can look at, even the microbial life, how that is in you. It's like take a look at our gut and see how things are working there. And so soil health is important, is very important to agriculture sustainability, to keep producing. If we don't keep our soil healthy, then our crops production will go down, and then the nutrient value of those crops that we are producing are going to decline as well.
I see. So we saw on your website that you collaborate with state and local entities. Yep. Could you talk about your collaboration with the Black Hawk County Soil and Water Conservation District?
Yeah, so and the Soil and Water Conservation Districts in Black Hawk County this year is celebrating 80 years of doing conservation work just in this county. Every county in the state has a Soil and Water Conservation District. Pottawatomie County has 2 of them. They broke it in the east and west because the county is so big. But that's the core. I mean, there are local stakeholders. There are 5 elected commissioners and assistant commissioners that work with the Soil and Water Conservation District. And we're here because they've invited us here to come and help. They set the local priorities for what we want to do with soil with conservation, and then we come alongside of them to help carry out those priorities that they've set in the local county. So without the Soil and Water Conservation District and that partnership that has been strong for a long time. Without that partnership, it's hard for us to carry out the things that we get mandated to do through Congress.
I see. So what are some of the ways this partnership works with farmers in the Black Hawk County to address this?
Yeah, so when you walk in my office, you really don't know if you're talking to a state level person, a county level person, or a federal level person, right? It's like seamless the way we partner. We use a lot of the state programs to carry out the mission. We use federal programs when it's appropriate. We use, the local district has like a watershed project you guys talked about earlier with Dry Run Creek. Those partnerships is how this all work together. Very, very strong partnership. And like I said, they bring certain things to the table. The federal brings certain, federal employees bring certain things to the table. And then you take that partnership, and when our customers come in and we're doing conservation planning with them, a lot of times we're thinking about what's the best source for them to get help from, but they're not thinking about that. They're just talking to the person across the counter from them, and then we start, I like to say, pulling tools out the toolbox to figure out what helps the producer or the homeowner or county government, it doesn't matter, working with them to figure out what tool is going to help to get them to be able to reach their goal.
So it's a seamless partnership then?
It's very seamless. I mean, yeah, on the inside, it might seem challenging sometimes, but from the outside, it is very seamless.
Okay. So you touched on this a little bit, but what have been some of the greatest successes because of this partnership?
Locally, I would have to point you to the project you talked about earlier with Dry Run Creek. I mean, we've been doing this, we're 20 years now. Wow. That project has been going on here in Black Hawk County. One of the highlights of the state of Iowa when it comes to watershed projects. And so that is, we've had other successes with other projects that we've done, but that is probably the highlight of what we've been able to do and how much we've been able to help with. At the time, 20 years ago when we started that project, wasn't much urban conservation going on around the state. It was just starting to be talked about, but not a whole lot being done to try to help cities deal with erosion and deal with water quality issues. And so to see that project still around 20 years, I've been here since the beginning of it. Just a great success story. But we've had some others. We're doing some stuff in urban ag now that is a direct result of our partnership. Our local commissioner saying, I want urban agriculture, which is a little different than urban conservation. Urban agriculture is more people who are growing like table food, for example. Mm-hmm. And so maybe farming a lot in town. Working with those people to teach them about the things that we've already taught in rural about water quality issues, nutrient management, soil erosion, those things that we've been teaching in rural Iowa for the last umpteen years. We're now using some of those same principles and teaching them in the urban area. That's a direct result of our local partnership that we have.
That's awesome. So we're going to take a short break and we'll be right back. So what got you into this line of work? Like, why are you interested in conservation?
Yeah, funny story. A long time ago, as you can tell with the gray hairs in my beard, I was in high school. Mm-hmm. And I was working with my FFA class, a Future Farmers of America class, and we started doing an outdoor classroom. I grew up on a small farm also in Alabama, small cow-calf farm. And during that project, I got an opportunity to meet some of the people that worked for the, I believe at the time it was a Soil Conservation Service still, might have just changed names. and got to see the kind of work that was being done, growing up on a farm, being able to work with farmers, teach them about conservation and trying to protect our natural resources just seemed like something that I would like to do. So I explored it in college and ended up with a degree in agribusiness, and been working for them ever since. It's the only job I've ever had.
Wow. For the regular viewers out there, can you talk about how individuals or communities can work together on soil and water conservation? And are there everyday things that the non-farmer person can do to help?
Absolutely. I find it funny. I'm laughing because I get farmers a lot of times will say to me, Schaefer, you're telling me that I shouldn't use more fertilizer, but you don't go talk to the homeowner that's going down to the local home improvement store and grabbing a couple of bags of fertilizer because it's that time of the year, spring of the year. I want my lawn to green up. I want it to be lush and pretty, and I want to get rid of all the weeds. And they say, you don't talk to those guys. I never see you talking to them. And I often, and a lot of that might be true somewhat, because I don't think, we require farmers to get a soil test. They're not required. We encourage them, get a soil test before you decide how much fertilizer you want to put on. And then most homeowners don't do that. They go down, they grab a bag of fertilizer, and then they apply it to their lawn. So I'd encourage them to maybe do a soil test to see if you need more fertilizer this year, to see if you really do need to make an assessment. Maybe you don't need to spray the weeds this year, because all of those things will affect our water quality. Be careful when you're applying your fertilizer that you don't have it going out into the street, because the next time it rains, all of that will get flushed down into your storm drain. That storm drain is somehow, somewhere connected to our streams, and all of that excess nutrients will end up in our water bodies. And so maybe when you're washing your car, those detergents that you're washing your car on the driveway, those detergents go into our streams. That hurts our fish and our aquatic life. And so those are things that I think people don't think about, but can have a great effect. You say, well, I just got a little bit of fertilizer, but you're a little bit, plus your neighbor's a little bit, plus that neighbor's a little bit, begins to add up to a whole lot and starts to affect our water quality.
All right. Awesome. We have been talking with Schaefer Ridgway from National Resources Conservation Service. Thank you for joining us today and talking about the important work you do, and then we'll be right back after this message.
Now sure, she makes the sun seem deep in the lost sea.
That's all the time we have for today. This has been Media for Change, What's in Your Water. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.